Welcome to the Art Behind the Cards, where I am stepping away from Critical Role artists and now moving into the Godzilla art. I know you guys love these art interviews and I enjoy giving them to you, so I thought I'd expand outside of the Critical Role sphere that I've been doing and hit up some of the most gorgeous looking alt art of 2024 with the Godzilla Challenger Series. I reached out to Tsukimusha, who did the alt art cards, asked for an interview, and they are more than willing to answer my questions. They are traveling at the moment, so they asked me to submit the questions and they got back to me quite quickly. So as always, I asked them to introduce themselves and tell me a little bit about their art. This is how I usually start these interviews, but it's a great way for us to learn a bit more about the artist. So it turns out that they have been drawing for as long as they can remember, since early childhood. They always knew that they wanted to practice art professionally, and luckily they had a supportive family that knew that this was their path in life. They graduated from the University of Massachusetts, Dartmouth, with a BFA in illustration, but unfortunately they felt like that education hadn't prepared them for the industry. Trying to make a living from their art, they decided to apply for booths at conventions, not knowing that it would grow into a career path that is 12 years and counting. That is absolutely amazing to hear. And I'm sure that anyone that has seen a Godzilla alt art in person knows that this is 12 years well spent. I then asked if they were familiar with UVS Games and Universus prior to being contracted to do the art. They told me that they were not yet familiar with UVS Games or Universus, but they were in the fairly early stages of growth at that time. But they were very encouraged when they heard that we had the My Hero Academia license. They were open to being worked with after being contacted by them. But it wasn't until a bit later on that they found out they were going to be working on Godzilla. So they were contracted for art, but didn't know what they were going to be working on. So that's just really cool. So let's find out a bit about the history with Godzilla. I asked them if they were a fan of Godzilla and what their history was with the franchise. It turns out that their mum had raised them on cinema and including lots of the older Godzilla films as they were a child. They really enjoyed the monster designs and the gentle characters like Raptor and Rugrats that reinforced that. They particularly like the all monsters attack Godzilla's revenge. Unfortunately, they did suffer some bullying at school, so they identified a lot with a young protagonist, Ichiro, who learned to stand up for himself with the power of Minileo, Godzilla's son, and they found that really empowering. So it feels like they get to express a little bit of their appreciation and respect for Godzilla by undertaking this project. That's something we love to see, and we can kind of tell that kind of passion in the art that we get to see. I asked if they had any favorite Godzilla movies, comics, TV shows, anything from the franchise that was cool to them and they saw as their favorite. They also think Godzilla -1 has been the most compelling. They even shed a few tears in the theater watching it. And the artist did a great job with the Godzilla redesign. Moving on to the art for the cards, I asked them how they felt when they were asked to make art for cards. They answered with, I was incredibly excited. It felt like reconnecting with my childhood with their mother, who has since passed. It was a huge honor to be asked to apply my skills in Japanese art techniques to such a well-known and respected franchise. This is a very good point. Using Japanese art techniques into a Japanese franchise such as Godzilla, but it's great to hear that this was a way for them to reconnect with a loved one who is no longer with us. Huge respect to yourself and your mother. I'm glad that you have that connection, and it's great to hear that our cards are a way for you to maintain that connection. Moving on, I asked, did they know that the art that they were providing was going to be on the most sought after cards in the Godzilla Challenger? They responded, I had no idea. I figured that they would at least be somewhat rare considering their alts, but it wasn't until later in the project that they found out that they were going to be a completely random chance pull from the booster packs. Yeah, these are not as rare as the Critical Role alt arts that were provided by Bad Moon Art Studios, but these are still very rare cards, the character alt arts, and they're amazing. I was lucky enough to get to see them in person, and they absolutely rock. I move on to ask if they have a favorite Godzilla character, and this is going to make a lot of people very happy. They answered with, it's hard to beat the OG King of Monsters himself. The feeling of anticipation every time That spine starts to glow and move up to the atomic breath sends chills every time. I 100% agree with that. That is one of the most iconic moments where you just start to hear the build-up of power. You see that glow going up the tail to the mouth, and the blast comes down. You know that is when everything in this fight is about to change and everything's about to get rocked. Beautiful answer. Moving on, as I ask all artists, I asked them about the process of working with UVS. UVS was an absolute joy to work with, especially my art director Chris Redley, aka Hitch, who gave me so much creative freedom over this project. It really allowed me to run wild and find fun ways to express each character. A representative of their Tokyo office even visited my booth at Anime Expo last year to thank me for my work on the project. That is so cool! No way! Oh, that is so cool. I absolutely love that. And fair play to them. They worked really hard on this art and it's beautiful art. So I 100% expected them to get that love and respect from what was going on there. And yeah, I hope we get to see more artists and we can get kind of exposed to them at regionals and other things, but that is a topic for another. Moving on, I wanted to find out a little bit more about their process. So what was the process of finding the right art for the cards? Was it a discussion? They responded with, like I said, I had a ton of creative freedom. There were specific kaiju chosen for them, but no specific requests in terms of composition. They just that the kaiju should look epic, well suited to the drama of a battle scene, along with the use of Japanese design aesthetics, which my art style is known for. I sketched out a few poses and varied angles for each card, and Chris picked the ones he felt looked the best. From that point, I really continued to have creative freedom over line weight, techniques, colors, usage. With a few revisions requested, we wanted to make sure that the designs would benefit from the foil effect they planned to print them with. So if you're unaware, that these were one of the first ones that had the textured foiling, the way with different grain lines and other sort of aspects, and yeah, you can tell that they had this in mind from the beginning. The way they wanted the artwork to incorporate this new foiling, and they are still so very cool. Following on from the process, I asked that the art that you gave for the Godzilla cards was unique. How did you settle on that art style for the cards? They responded with, I've been practicing incorporating Japanese techniques into my art for about 12 years. I've spent a lot of time studying woodblock prints and ukiyo and shin hanga genres, as well as traditional Japanese printing nihonga. Jeez, they're not making this easy for me. And the tattoo designs of Ayazumi. They took inspiration from contemporary artists too, as a big part of the thesis of their art style is bringing appreciation for traditional to contemporary audiences. And I think that does come across in the art, especially looking at things like the Godzilla and the Ghidorah. The way that it mixes the contemporary and the traditional is absolutely beautiful. Carrying on talking about the art, because that's what we're here for. Did they have any references for the kaiju? And there's been so many different iterations of the Godzilla kaiju throughout the years. How did they settle on the ones that we ended up with? Quite a cool answer here. Universus had specific versions they wanted for each kaiju and provided several reference worksheets for them to go off. They then went away and did their own research, including rewatching several films to come up with the ideas and find specific angles that they wanted and needed to capture the epic status of these kaiju. That is so very cool. Carrying on looking at the art, I was asking if there was any pieces that had to go under multiple revisions, anything that provided a particular challenge to the artist. The most challenging card was definitely Mecha Godzilla Kiryu. I really like drawing, inking more organic shapes, but things with strong structural elements like mechas and robots are a real struggle. I wanted to make sure that all the details were accurate. That one alone took about 2 weeks. So some respect there. That is an absolute beast of them, working outside their comfort zone and making sure that it still came in with this absolutely beautiful and stunning art, and showing that they put so much attention into the detail. Carrying on talking about Mechagodzilla, I asked if they had any references in the art that we should be looking out for, any kind of Easter eggs, and it turns out that in both cases of Mechagodzilla, they took direct inspiration from the scenes where they were fighting in the movies. Aside from that, unfortunately, no hidden Easter eggs, but if you are a fan of their work, they do that sometimes in their work, but these were created during the holiday season of 2023, so the timeline was a little bit constrained. With a hard deadline of January, they chose to focus on making each card stand out, but if we see them in the future, maybe we'll see some Easter eggs as well. Who knows? I'm sure I'll come to that question in a little bit. I then went on to ask them that the Godzilla Challenger characters have been very impactful to the game, topping and winning multiple events. We've literally just seen a Rodan Ghidorah final, and with players trying to bling out their decks, you will see that the alt arts pop up quite a lot. How does it feel that that art is being highlighted at so many events, streams, with everybody watching? They responded with, "It is fantastic. This is the first ever CCG project that they have worked for. They were incredibly honored to have their art held like trophies. They even had someone visit their booth at the most recent convention to get a copy signed." That is so very cool. If you've got that card, let me know in the comments below. I would love to see it. I'd love to get some kind of follow-up as what's going on here, and that is so very awesome. As we start to wrap up the interview, as I do anyone, this art is absolutely amazing, and I would love to see more of it in the game, so I asked if we would be seeing any more of them in the game. It's a very hopeful answer that they would love to, and it would be an honor to illustrate more cards, so hopefully we might see some more in the future. UVS, make that happen, please. If you are interested in Tsukimusha, you can check them out on socials. I will link them in the description below. They have their own website, they're on Instagram, they're on Twitter, they're on Blue Sky. They do a lot of work with similar aesthetics which they sell on their web store and at anime, gaming and comic conventions across the US and abroad. They recently created a series of ukiyo-e style posters for Lego for their booth at Star Wars Celebration Japan. They also created a pack-in poster for the Western physical release of Fight Crab for Nintendo Switch, and have worked on a Japanese folklore-inspired game called Kitsurino by a company called Ukiyo. They're hoping to do more tabletop and video games in the future. I would absolutely love to see more of this artist floating around, and it's great that they're going 12 years strong, and hopefully there's only more things to come for them. And as always, I ended with just a simple question of, did they have any messages for us, the Universus community? Their final answer to us all is, "Thanks for playing the Godzilla Challenger Series. They are really glad that people enjoy what they have brought to the game and continue to follow my work in the future." And they ask that you continue to follow their work in the future. I'm going to be following their work. I advise you to go check them out on socials and follow their work. And hopefully we'll see more of them in the game when more sets get released and we get more of this beautiful art from all these wonderful artists. Let me know in the comments below. Did you like this line of questioning? Is there anything that I'm not asking artists that you would like to hear? And of course, let me know what your favorite Godzilla alter art is. Which character to you just screams, "This is pure epic drip"? Which one of these characters are farming? I'm going to keep this up. It seems like people really like these art series where I'm asking people behind the scenes what's going on with the cards. As we get more sets, as we get more of this bespoke art that UVS is commissioning, I will keep tracking down artists, and I will make sure that they get the love and respect that they deserve, because they are bringing such epicness to this card game. I'll catch you all on the next one, and I will see you at game night. Bye.